my napkin journal. So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream, and I'm talking about my the start of my napkin journal. And I thought this phone book, nobody ever uses phone books anymore. I wanted an unusual one, and I hate wasting things, and I love the shape. I love the fact that it was long, and I thought the other beauty of it is that if you open a napkin straight across, it actually fits the page. And I thought, this is never going to work, it's too thin. So I thought, and the other thing I didn't like is you could see really through it. And being a tight Yorkshire lass, I tried gessoing it. Now I'm going to make my own gesso because I can make it thicker, and that might work. The other way of doing it is to actually put a cheap photocopy paper. Again, cheap Yorkshire lass. Do need a white background to make the colours pop again, because as you can see they're not as bright on that side as they are that side. So that was one idea I had. So I thought, well, would it work? Can you actually do this? And I didn't want to say anything because she may not have got it yet. The other thing you can do with napkins is you can photocopy them and then colour them in. That was the other thing I did. I photocopy everything. I've even photocopied a tea towel of a local church, and I intend to colour that in as well. So that's my ongoing thing, that I might start making videos again, because I haven't made any videos for ages. I've been too poorly, but I've let it dry, and you can see the words through it. But then I thought, well, I buy colouring in books, and then I photocopy them, and then I cut them up and I do all sorts with them. So that was my first attempt, but it does wrinkle the page because, of course, this is really thin paper, and as much as I love thin paper, it's got to take something. But I used ordinary cheap white PVA glue and water, and it's not too bad. It's not as perfect as it should be, but you know, I'm making it out of napkins. And again, the other thing is, out of a napkin you get 3 layers. So my journal napkin will consist of, I'll just pop that over there, oh dear, of some pages with the original pattern, because I only have 5 different napkins, so it's going to get boring after a while. But my other idea is, with the other 2 covers, the other 2 sheets, I will draw my own designs on, colour them in, and then I will put them down. Yes, I have. I'm Heather AC actually. I should be Bunny's Designs, but I'm not. I'm Heather AC. I think it just naturally grabs whatever you call yourself. I'd say with Dee Dee, I definitely wanted to do a napkin design. I'd never used napkins before, and the 5th one that I found was this one, which I just thought was so fantastic. But you can photocopy anything that's black and white. You can photocopy, whether it be a t-shirt, a dress. Iron it first, flatten it out, photocopy it, colour it in, shove it in a book. So I only have, and I didn't want to say anything, but I because it sounded like I was thinking about, I've never had any Happy Mail, and I've never had any napkin swap. So I thought, I was feeling, but anyway, I have 4 designs, but when you pull them off, there's one that has a very faint, the middle one is very faint. It's very faint. So what I'm going to do is, because I did watch another couple of videos last night of Watkins, but I've been quite, excuse me, I have to have a drink, quite poorly. That's where I got the idea for popping something bright behind. But I'm just filming from my phone, so it's not the ideal thing, but I haven't worked for 16 years, so I can't justify going out and buying a camera, unfortunately. Oops, I see I spilt my water and hardly any of it's gone anywhere. The only thing you've got to be careful was if you have a pot. I should send this to Dee Dee, shouldn't I? It's an ink well. But you have to be careful when you're playing with napkins and you're colouring in, because I sometimes use that for water. Oh, I think I've frozen, haven't I? Bear with me 2 seconds. It's not ideal, this, I have to say. But it's cheap and cheerful, and that tight Yorkshire lass thing keeps coming through. So as I say, that's what I was showing. My little inkwell. Well, say little. And it's ideal to cover up, because when you're working with a napkin, you've got to be careful, because the slightest drop will cover. So what I was going to do is, I was going to pop, because I think I did mention on Dee Dee's thing about the napkin journal, I said I was going to watercolour on a napkin. I think everybody thought I was crackers, and even I thought I was crackers, but there you go. That's with some photocopy paper behind, and that's plain. So I might just try and glue in a few of those. But the only thing is that there are 336 pages in this phone book, and I would think that's going to warp pretty well. So I thought, oh sorry Sarah, yeah, at 18 and 16 I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore, but my hubby was very good, because I started with this arthritis when I had my second daughter 18 years ago. So when my second daughter was born 16 years ago, I was in a brace all the way through. So I actually quite like the words through. But the other thing is, I kept thinking, well, I don't really want to copy what Dee Dee does. I want to do, but I've never done anything like this before. But what I do is when I've got my, as I say, when I've got my little books, the first thing I do is I take them to bits. I keep them in order, but I take them to bits, because then I realise that I probably won't use all of them, but I photocopy the ones that I really love. And I wanted to cut some of these out and put them on here, because I have 2 more books like this. Again, I found them in the pound shop. I find them all over. I can't tear pages out. I'm greedy. If it's in there, I have to use it. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I thought I'd start in the middle and work, well, middle-ish, and keep working out and see what happens. But I don't do journal pages as such. I'm not, because I'm dyslexic, I don't like words and things, so I'm kind of about it. But in the end, I would think that I probably would take this spine off and put a new one on. That's what I might do. And the same in a book. I started colouring in a book. Oh, my puppy's come back. So the way, as I say, watercolouring is quite good, because, as I say, even this Bible, this really floppy, thin page, it's really, really thin. If you work out of a little book, you can see through it, but it doesn't bleed through. And I was quite pleased with that. Yeah, and I can't glue pages together either. I'm sorry. I'm just so bad. I'm really bad. I did start. The first one I did was in 2014. And I bought poster paint as well, cheap poster paint. I am such a tight Yorkshire girl. I really am. I mean, I do have some nice expensive things, but I started this old book, and it's a diary, and I've just scribbled all sorts of rubbish in it. And it's poster paint and acrylic, cheap acrylics. As I say, I'm really, really bad. That's the only pages I've ever done. I'm just so bad. And I was doing it more for therapy than anything else. I just scribble anything. I'm not neat at all, and I hate it. But I love the fact that it was falling to bits, and it was chunky, and it was an old diary that I would have thrown out. So yeah, I did. As I say, I used it for a little bit of therapy, the only page I liked, I couldn't show anybody. It was in I didn't want the girls to see it, but that's the only page I've ever done. But my drawing that I always do always comes out of it. And then I found a little Dumbo sticker, so I felt a bit better that I can do some things. But I love the fact that things are distorted. And what was the other one that I found? And I've lost it again. And it was outside, and I thought, oh no, that can't be outside. It's a book, and I bought it because it's about that fat. It's a novel, and it's that thick. It really is that thick. And it's hardbacked, and I've done a couple of journal pages in it, and I can't find it for the life of me. I might do that next week, actually, if anybody wants me to do anything. Yes, I think if you think about how I draw very precise and very neat because I did graphic design. I think it spoils you as an artist because you can't be wispy, and you can't do 30 pencil strokes or pen strokes where I would just draw one. But that was the first thing that got me. I say it's all basically the same. And then I made one. I'm going off the subject, I know. You'll have to forgive me. Dee Dee calls it rabbit trails. I call it rabbit droppings because that's the only way you know where bunnies have been. But that's just me. That's just me and my warped kind of brain. But I watched Jenny Belly years and years ago, and I made this. Again, out of complete rubbish because I'm just a tight Yorkshire girl. That is a cornflakes box. Excuse me. And again, I watched a lady called Sea Lemon, and I watched her how she made her books, and I just thought, oh, I could make one of these. And again, I've used wallpaper and some metallic Are you laughing at me being a tight Yorkshire lass? Oh, I'd forgotten where all these were. You see, they've been in there for years, these. Goodness knows only what's on there. Scruffy pieces of paper. Oh yes, I also do what Jenny Belly does as well, is the bits that you draw on I keep, and then I've actually stuck in. I haven't done many, but I stuck them in. These are the edges of things I've used. This is wallpaper. This is the paper lining, which I loved, and all the colours in the backgrounds, they're horrible, I know, but they are all children's. Oh, there's some backgrounds, and I love the fact of is it Sea Lemon? Yes, she's fab. I made this book as well, and the other thing I might go through about papers as well. That's how she taught me to do the books. This is a cheap sketchbook. I think she does one of her videos. This is 2 cheap sketchbooks, really, really nasty, not nice quality at all. There are 2 for 99p each, but look at my book. It's of course chunky. And I made them with the signatures. and I just can't help myself. But that will only lend itself, I mean, it really is nasty paper. It is kiddies, 2-year-olds throwing about paper. But the cardboard, it was that size because that's the cardboard back. So the only thing that I threw away, which actually I don't think I threw away, I think it's in here somewhere, is the front cover. I tell a lie, it wasn't that. It's twice the size of that. It's A3 because I made another book. I made 2 books, and that's the book I can't find. But I used the cover for something else. So I got 2 books out of the cover. But I used this paper, which I can't reach. Why did I pull that down? Sorry, I'm going off on a what's it, aren't I? I do apologise. Yeah, Thumper was a very famous rabbit. He's lived to be 15 and a half, almost 16. And a lady knocked on my door. I found the book. A lady knocked at my door and said, "Have you lost your rabbit?" And I went, "No." She said, "Well, there's one on the outside and it's going to be on the main road." So I was very ill, but I ran outside and I bent down and I just picked him up. And it was a baby dwarf. And we went into the village, into the local village shop, and we left messages that we'd found this rabbit and nobody came to us. And I decided to put him down the garden, and he got the worm in his head, bless him. And he was really ill, but he never stopped eating. He was munching and munching. So I nursed him back to health. And when we walked the dogs, there's a field next to the cottages, and I walked the dogs, and then there's a beautiful big house, and they have a 20-foot wall, and there's lots of rabbit meat, dandelions outside. And so I was picking a carrier bag full of them, and the gentleman came out, and I said, "You don't mind for my rabbit?" He says, "No, I don't mind." He said, "We used to have a rabbit." He says, "But it escaped." And I said, "It wasn't a dwarf?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I've got him, but I said, he's disabled, he's really ill." He says, "Oh, well," he says, "we don't want him back." And I thought, well, actually, I'm going to get him back. Sorry, I'm waffling, I know. Right. So that was made out of rubbish, basically, and the kids' poster paint. There's not much in there. I have done. Bear with me 2 seconds. I hope I'm not boring you to death, but I've gone on a say rabbit thing now. I made some tags and things, and I think that's from Jenny Belly. An artist cannot fail. It's a sex to be one, and I made a little pocket. And I thought, well, it isn't me. It isn't me. So I just said, that's the way I draw with my fine little pen. And then I was doing that. That's my doodle, apart from my flowers. Oh, I can't see very well. It's a girl with lots in front of a bookcase. Yeah, Thumper was quite famous in the end. Even mothers stopped me in the street and said, "Oh, how's Thumper?" And I looked at them and said, "My daughter goes to your house." The rule was if the girls had any friends over watching a movie, they had to have Thumper on the knee. And being a rabbit that didn't go anywhere, just sat. But he was extremely ill. So I decided to try a bit of sketching, and I failed miserably at it. Absolutely failed. I really failed at this, but I just loved the fact that I could do some kind of journaling rather than oh dear. Well, I have another story about rabbits which is horrible. I shall have a sip of I had at one point 70 odd rabbits, and I was always cross with my parents because they always sold the one that I loved the most. And I went to somebody's house for tea, and they said, "Oh, we're having chicken today." Now in those days, which is the 1970s, you didn't have chicken every day. Chicken was Sunday roast once a month. It was expensive. You didn't have chicken every day, but we had chicken every day. We had rabbit. Well, I didn't know it was rabbit, so I thought we had chicken every day. So when they got the chicken out and they put it on the table, and I said, "That's not chicken." Chicken's darker than that. And my parents hadn't told me, but I'd been eating rabbit. So that's my childhood. I think I've frozen again. That's back. Childhood. That's an awful thing. I was stood on a chicken, a little tiny chicken. It was my job to put them away, and I used to count them, and I counted 11, and I wondered where 12 was. And I stepped back. It was not good. But yes, definitely rabbit droppings. Definitely rabbit droppings. So I failed miserably. I bought some stamps and tried to doodle, and so I ended up just colouring in, doing horrible things. Again, what do we call it? Just basically doing horrible things. No, it isn't. It isn't yummy. It isn't yummy at all. It's not yummy. It's very gamey. When I went to live in Spain when I was rather ill, oh, they're terrible. Those are terrible. Those. Again, this doodle of mine keeps coming back that I did when I was young. So all this is covered in just. Then I started to go paler, I must admit. It's poster paint and just cheap acrylics. The real cheap treatments. And this is wallpaper paper. Again, I just like the idea of having a big book that I could just scribble rubbish in. I never really did anything with it, so I might actually come back to that. Now I've got things to cut up. I once bought a rabbit for my to cook, and I thought, oh well, I'll do this because I do a lot of French cooking. I thought I'll do this French, and I had to throw it away. And then I cried because I thought not only did it die to be ate, it died and I didn't eat it. Well, I was brought up on chicken, and I said to this mother, that's not chicken. We have chicken every day. We have chicken every day, and that is not chicken. She said, I'm sorry, love, it is. I said, chicken is darker than that. Chicken is very, very dark. And then I went home, and they said, I think you've been eating rabbits. So I realised that all these times, but I did get 75p every time. Have I frozen again? Sorry. Every time they murdered one, I shouldn't say that. Every time they killed one. Every time they killed one, I got 75p. But I wasn't happy. But it was always my favourite rabbit. I said, why didn't you kill that one or that one? But you killed Fluffy or Snowy or that's sticking together, because that is the cheap acrylic. Is that better? Where did I get? There's nothing very exciting. It's just wallpaper paste and maybe any rubbishy bits that. There were some things that I was going to throw away because they didn't stick. Well, not throw away, and I quite like them. Sometimes if you buy cheapy things or things that are out of date, they don't stick as well. Just basically wallpaper. That's what's on the cover, I think. Oh no, I didn't. I did what Jenny Belly did, bless her. I did the brown paper and crinkled it up, and I think somebody else did it as not the Harry Potter book, the book from Hocus Pocus, and then you draw an eye in it and you do a snake on it and all sorts, but you just brown paper, and that's fantastic. And I thought that, and it was a thin Kellogg's. I thought it was, and this is really tough. I mean, I can't bend that. It is really tough. And all it is brown paper scrunched up with glue. There's wallpaper on the back, and it's a Kellogg's box, which are quite flimsy. They're not that sturdy. And this has been kicking about as well, and it's still lasted. But these are good for kids. I was going to try and start an art class and cheap and cheerful. One roll of wallpaper, and you'd get 20, 30, 40 books out. So my design keeps popping up in all different denominations. But that's a good book if you want to go kind of big. And I've got this thing about big and chunky. But then I wanted to have one that I could take out. So I'd made that one with, as I say, all the paper of two books went into that. And because it was a sketchbook, even though it was a kid's one, it was actually really good, thick cardboard. The other thing I started, and I can't think who the lady was. Oh yes, I can. Oh dear, bear with me 2 seconds. Thank you, Sarah. Is that better? The other book I made was the cover. Oh my goodness, my brain. I've got fibromyalgia and my brain is potty. I wanted a fake Hobonichi, and so I decided to make one. So again, it looks exactly the same as this one, but instead I wanted it to be like the Hobonichi paper that you can draw on and watercolour. And again, this is out of my book, and I can't think. But the other thing I wanted is I love the square paper as well, so I put a sheet of each. But this is down here. It's not the marker paper because that's a bit thicker. It's not marker paper for graphic designers. This one's layout paper, and layout paper will let you watercolour. Oh, sorry, I've gotten blurred. It'll let you watercolour, and it shows through, but it doesn't bleed through. And again, big chunky book. And what I was doing was I wanted the Hobonichi, but I can't do the date thing. I'm a bit like Didi with that. And I always thought it was because I was dyslexic. And diaries, I'd start wonderful for about 3 days and then lose it and then feel guilty. And I thought it was just me, so I was quite pleased when I found out that other people do the same. My design that I do in black work stitches, because I used to do embroidery, I do embroidery, well, when my fingers are not bad. So again, this is the layout paper. Fab, thin. There's 600 and some pages there in that little book. Again, I love chunky books. This is the watercolour paper. I never worked very, very wet, but I just like doing, and this is, again, this is the ink, permanent ink, isograph, motoring pen. I think I've gone off on a bunny what's it, but hey ho. So that got me into the book making, and that was what I was going to say. My little book that I have that's fallen on the floor down there and I can't get to it is an A6. This is a photo book, a Polyview, and it's an A5. It sits in my Hobonichi, fake Hobonichi. Vintage, something vintage, the lady that makes the book covers. And I can't think of her name. I think she's from down under somewhere. Anyway, thank you. Do you mean the big one, or do you mean my little tiny Diddy one? Well, A5. Oh, vintage, not vintage. Oh, I can't think of her name. The lady that makes the book covers, and I can't think of her name. Does anybody else watch with the Hobonichis? It's something vintage. Can't think. But my idea was that this is, again, the photocopied paper, but this time sticking two photocopied papers together to make A6, and then slicing them long ways so that you can slide them that way. So you will have your coloured squares on here and on here, and you'd flip them down, but you would get 2 out of every one. So you'd have, that's plastic, you'd have your colours here. I mean, if you didn't want to do that, you could just stick that down with double-sided tape and just have colours here. But then you would have your A5, and there's still 12, I think, in here. So you'd still have a couple of hundred. You could get all your Inkten's. I think you can get about 150 in here. 150 colours to go inside your fake Hobonichi. I can't think of the lady's name. Can you remember the lady's name? Something vintage, and she made the Hobonichi book with the extra pockets. which were fab for putting all sorts of things in. I had all sorts in mine. And a stencil as well. But as I say, but all these colours are from the watercolour book, Playing About with Colour, to the more intricate pale, the very pale colours. These are all from my book. It's something vintage, I'm sure it is, but my brain won't work. And again, all those reds are from that book. And I just put two little metal goodness. Oh, that's right, because what I wanted to do was work one way and another. I've got another book in there. I don't know what that's doing it there for. There is a book behind there. Why is there another book behind there? Oh, don't know. But I take that out. They just pop out. That's the spine of the book. And I didn't do anything with it because I made it for... It was £12 was this paper, but I only used about 6 sheets because I got the A2. Carrying that around London, I looked a complete idiot, but I went to Cassart in London. That's a fab place for discount things, is Cassart. Absolutely love it. And I love everybody in it because they're all so enthusiastic. Not quite sure what's in this one. Oh, yep, some more sketchings. Yeah, I didn't do very well with those. I can't do sketchy. Can't do sketchy. Have to do line drawings. Just have to do. I was trying to dye my door. I can't do faces either. But I love that little cover. Can't think of the lady's name. So what that led me to, it led me to this phone book, and it led me to all these, thinking, well, as I say, I don't really like copying anybody, and I know Dee Dee put her ladies in there, but I thought, well, if I did some flowers and nature, I could cut these out and then stick them over the top, because otherwise what am I going to do with about 6 lots of these? Haven't got the foggiest idea. Even if I don't photocopy them, not sure what I'm going to do with them. Going to try and see if I can... Oh, these pages are when I was talking about putting the Gansai Tambi watercolours in. Is everybody okay? Am I boring? A pocket full of vintage. Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, pocket full of vintage. The lady, oh, go have a look. She's fab. She makes this little book, and she shows you how... No, she doesn't. She makes the book cover for any book at all. Any book at all. And if you put pockets in it, you can put your pens. And as I say, I was going to make one of these watercolour booklets, but an A5. So if you double that over, it's like mine, but you would get at least a couple of 100 colours in there if you put your squares in. And that fits in there. Yeah, pocket full of vintage. She made, and I think it's called, is it called a fake Hobonichi book cover? I didn't do mine brilliantly. I did mine for 2 pens. The way she does it is if you do it like that, you can push your pen in and it keeps your book shut. But she's a fab lady. She does some wonderful books and things, and that's a book cover made out of, again, rubbish. All for making things out of rubbish. So when I was talking about, I'll go back to really quickly, when I was going back to the Gansai Tambi watercolours, I made the puddles of colour, and I ended up with a large brush full of colour, and I couldn't just kind of shove it in the water and fiddle it, so I decided that I would colour. So I picked things that I didn't really like, and I started to colour. And then when it got too dry, I dipped just the tip in to reconstitute it. And what that did is all this was colour, and there was no colour, and the water... Oh, sorry, Dan, I didn't know who was down there. And I kept going and going, and I coloured 20 different colours sheets out of it. 20 pages of colour. That was one, that was another. And the first two were the reds that I was waffling on about, but of course now I've started to tell you about it, I can't find them. That's the graphitint, that's what the graphitint looks like. That's the one I did the rabbit with, Thumper. The Derwent graphitint there, wonderful colours. All muted but fab. Now I've mixed everything up now. Typical. But you keep thinking, well, what are you going to do with all these if you don't like them? So I thought, well, I might shove them in that book. But as I say, I don't like copying people. But it's a good idea, and I'm sure she'll forgive me, bless her. So, yes, can't find those. So that's what I was going to do, is pick out some of these that I thought I might do animals and flowers and animals. That's the Ganzai Tambi watercolour, using it straight out of the pan. And then some of those are using it, so they're slightly muted, but only slightly. They are pretty nice things to... I mean, it's a beautiful box, but it's not very... Oh, that's the pink, that's what I was going to show you. So the pinks, from 6 pinks, I got all those colours out. I coloured those 2 pages. That's the deepest first colour, and then that's the palest, real pale colours. Very pale, almost white. But I was determined, and I showed a video, and I washed the brush out, and the water from all 36 Ganzai Tambi watercolour, the colour wasn't as dirty as that. You could see through it. Can't see through that. And I just thought that was fab. I didn't waste a drop. That was another one. That's when I was getting towards the end. The other one. That was the yellows. That was the pinks. That was the pales. That was the yellows when they got a bit paler. So again, they're the same colours. That's neater, and that's after a lot more water. So always try, if you can, that was another one, is to that was when it got very pale. But even as an experiment, instead of washing your brush out in your pot of water, just see how far you can get it going, even just using a scrappy bit of colouring paper for making designs in, because as I say, I got 20 full colour pages out of 36 brushes. Right, I've waffled so much, so my idea is going to be going back to the watercolour brush, is because when I was doing this last week, a lady said put something bright behind, because it wouldn't seem, and I said I'd kept this as a board to keep the napkins straight. So my idea is going to be that the main napkin pattern will go in first, and then I will probably put one behind a white background and draw designs on the other. So I wondered if that's okay. Does anybody want to ask me anything? As I say, I seem to have gone off on a tangent. That's what we say in England, isn't it? We've gone off on a tangent. So, and as I say, the other thing is that's going to be free. The best thing is I'm actually going to my neighbours to ask for hers as well, because it just lends itself to that kind of, I haven't eaten all day. I'm getting over this virusy flu buggy thing that I had, and I just can't eat. That lends itself to the way I worked in the big book, which was, hi Sarah, yeah, is just throwing the poster paint. I bought the children's poster paints because they were cheap and cheerful. I think they were at where were they? The Works. In UK we have the Works, which is where I found lots of these. And my favourite purchase of the day is I found this at the Works for £5. And I'm doing, I think it's this one that has the wolves. And again, I've photocopied the wolves because I'm getting myself in a bit of a pickle now. I seem to have got things everywhere. Oops. Just bear with me 2 seconds. So I do apologise. When I make my videos, I take out about 1,000 buts. That was my first attempt with the chameleon art pens. That's the only other thing I do use. I can actually blend with those. They are fab to use, really fab. That's the only other thing that's vibrant. It's the only marker that I can use. And they do go through. So I've been photocopying things. Again, if you photocopy it, I'll just show you one off. Yeah, it's something about really fine paper that makes it crinkle. That's one thing that I do love about it, I have to say. And the fact that it's going to get extremely misshapen. It's going to get really tatty, but it's still going to look good. When you were asking me about the colours, that's another one that I've started. And as I say, I draw on the side. I flick on the side of the paper to make sure it's the colour that I want. But those are from the little book, and they are quite vibrant, those. They're not muted and watercolourish. So it's quite versatile, is that little book. I was just trying to find something else, but typical, when I didn't want it, I found it, and now I want it, I can't find it. But I say I've even got my daughter scribbling on. So that's not finished. She hasn't finished that one yet. But she's scribbling on photocopy paper. Bless her. And I watched the bears as well. What I was looking for, I can't find it now. Nope, I can't find it. So I might keep those out actually, because they were. The other thing I use is I can't bear to buy a large one of these from the shops. So I buy them from the pound shop in the cooking section because they're £1, and then you can waste them. It's fine. As I say, a bit of a cheap girl I am. Can't help it. I'm married to a very tight Yorkshire lad as well, bless him. Yes, I think I'll use the poster colours, because if you water the poster colour down and then use if you don't watercolour, what I did, I just, and that's what I might try in the phone book, is just put a couple of colours down and then use a baby wipe and then smear them round. So the first page is quite vibrant, and then you get some kind of really kind of dull. It's upside down, and I've frozen again, sorry. I'm going to have to invest in a camera, but I don't know which is the best to buy for a web page. I'm sure I'll find one, but no, it isn't there. And that's upside down. I'm really sorry, I think I've frozen again. Could be bad now. So when I was colouring in, I say this poster paint, the big old bottles you buy for the children, for toddlers, that's what I've used in here, and some cheap pound shop acrylics. But they do work well, and they go a long way. My daughter filled most of her book with them, and you can do all sorts with them. You can rub with them, and but they're crinkly, but they thicken the pages up. And again, I never would looked at that before, but I quite like those now. Yes, Sarah says there's nothing wrong with great bargains. I'm a bit of a bargain hunter, I said. So I photocopied this, and because it's a funny size, it's ended up on 3 pages. I'll just get rid of those. I think, oops, the puppy is right under my feet, bless him. Well, I say puppy, he's 2 years old. He's just under my feet, and I'm so frightened of pushing the chair back and catching his paws, because if I do, I won't be able to get up quick enough, because I'm a bit lame, and I won't be able to get up quick enough, so I'll really hurt him. So yeah, I bought everything to make a jelly plate. That's the other thing I've got to do as well. And the other thing I did is I photocopied the napkin and coloured it in. That's the one I did last week, where I was really thinking about watercolour techniques. So that's just a photocopy of the napkin. So you can get some really lovely effects. And because it's photocopy paper, but that's not gone through. So if you want to use this with an ordinary book, you can do. But I never thought of that with the gel. I want to make a jelly plate. I bought some gelatine and some it's gelatine and something else. And the funny thing is, I also made my own gesso as well. And it's when there was only 1 or 2 people making it themselves. There was no videos about. And I listened to, I didn't realise at the a young girl, and everybody was horrible with it about you don't need sugar and you don't need vinegar, and they said you can just use water and glue. Now water and glue is fine, you can water down glue, and I went away and somebody wanted £7 for a little pot of white glue in filing. I thought, no way. So I googled it and I found that it's flour and water and something else. I can't for the life of me think what it is. And I made a pot of glue, white glue, that the kids could eat because it's flour and water, that's all it is. I think it's got vinegar in it or something. I can't really think. I think it has vinegar in it. I'm sure somebody will correct me, somebody will tell me. Oh wow, Lynn says she's made a jelly plate up for over 2 years and it's still going fine. That's brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to make it. And the other thing is you can make one the size you want. Because I'm greedy, I want to make a big one. I'm sorry, I just can't do with little ones. I'm terrible. Everything's got to be chunky. So I made the white glue and then I put some baby powder in it and I made gesso. And as I say, the young girl that I watched, she was really young, and I thought, and people were really laying into her about this thing, and I thought, well, when I was a student, we used flour and water and glue. That's fine. PVA glue and water is fine. If you're doing it for an art project that you don't want to keep, if you're doing it for something that it's cheap and cheerful, but if you want to do it properly, you need to preserve it, and to preserve it you need preservatives, and sugar and vinegar are preservatives. So I was quite amazed that hers actually worked perfectly, and I can't find the video anymore. But so I photocopied this because I'm part of a Facebook group and we lost a young lady. So I thought I was going to do this in the graphy tint. And one of the ladies asked earlier about using graphy tint straight as a pencil. So I scribbled the colours and then I added water, and that's what you get. Compared to Thumper, who has now completely disappeared off the planet. They're the same colours, the greys. So if you use it from a little square, that's what you get. If you use it where you scribble on the page the colours that you want, and then you there is a word, not agitate, it's where you make it from pencil into water, I can't think what you call it. That's what you get. So they are darker, but for Thumper, and they were Thumper's colours, and there's only 3 pencils there, but I managed to get quite a lot of different shades. I don't know if you can see that. There's quite a lot of different shades from 3 pencils, but that's the graphy tint, and that's the graphy tint, but it's not thingied. So what I'm going to do is, her colours were purple and pinks. I'm going to do one of the wolves. I think it's that one, the one that's looking up. I like that one. So they're all going to be that colour apart from one. And again, I photocopy it because I can turn it. I couldn't really struggle with this book. I can hardly hold it now. But to colour and to turn it, it would be so difficult for me. So, but they're both £5. The Amorphia and the Animorphia, and the other one, I've forgotten what the other one's called. It's just under there and I can't get to it. There's Animorphia and no, it's disappeared. Oh, it's in my hand. Imagimorphia. And of course this one, I don't know if anybody's got this at all. Brilliant, Lynn, brilliant. Yeah, Lynn says you made a big jelly plate. Well, in theory, if you have a good baking tray, you can put it in a baking tray, I think, can't you, if you're making a jelly plate? Well, Jenny Belly does it with a rubber mat. She does it with a mouse mat, I think. I'm pretty sure she uses a mouse mat. Or does she no, she uses a mat that is for stamping on. I can't remember, but if you have a look at Jenny Belly on YouTube, she makes a jelly plate. She plays with jelly plate, but she uses, it's either a mouse mat or a thingy mat. You can get a thin mat for using when you're stamping, so you get a good image. I think that's what she used. Yeah, as I say, have a look at. As I say, I think she's just Jenny Belly on YouTube, and have a look on her. It's a long time ago, but she did some stamping. But what I was going to say was, I think they would be fab in the graphitint because they're like a metal. So I think Dee Dee did. What did she do? I think she did. Oh, she did the spider's web with the red and the silver. And she did something else as well. I can't think what else she did. But I thought they would be fab. I want to do the butterfly again in graphitint because it has that metallic-y metal thing. Yeah, Jenny. She's not a tight Yorkshire lass, but she has some. She is very recyclable. Anything. And the fab thing was she made a book out of baby wipes. When you crunch your colour with your baby wipes, I had them at one time. I had them absolutely everywhere, hanging from everything possible. Were damp baby wipes that I'd used with the colour. And so the and when they dry, because it's colour, you've got like muted colours. I think I'll have to dig them out. I never used them. I have saved them. I have a drawer full. But again, Jenny Belly's fab for that. She uses the backgrounds, and then she has a large paper on her desk that she has excess paint. And I think Dee Dee has a journal, and I think who's the other lady? Green. Oh, not Sarah Green. Oh, it's Green. God. No, it's gone. The other lady, Green. Oh, it's completely gone. And she has a journal desk book that she keeps on her desk that she scribbles the paint out, so that she doesn't wash her brush out in the water, because it's just waste, and I can't bear waste. So I'm going to be doing that. I might do a video about doing that, actually, I think. And as I say, I'm having trouble actually holding the book, but so that's another little project. But as I say, there is a difference between the greys from my little book, or scribbling in squares and using them directly. As I say, a lady asked me earlier, Samantha, she didn't say who it was, but somebody had asked me about that. So it's just taken me 3 hours to get to that, sorry. Shannon Green, yeah, I think it's Shannon Green. I'm pretty sure she has a desk journal that it's just for scribbling the colour out of her paintbrushes, so that she doesn't just wash it out in her brush. But that's the beauty of my little book. If you don't like waste, is your little bottle of water will last you, because she uses. Oh dear, I shouldn't have put that in maybe. Oh, it fits. but I did enjoy doing that, and again that's on photocopy paper. You can see through it, but and I loved, I mean the nose is just one, I used that, the nose is just one colour. No, it's too much light now. The nose is just one pen, but that's the versatility. So you have definitely got 10 shades out of one square of colour. So that lends to 5,000 at the moment, going on to 6,000 shades. So if there's anything else you want to say, ask me. I'll pop it into. I think Thumper would look quite well in there, but this is. I made this for Thumper before he died, bless him. But I have to say I went to pieces because he was my little boy. It's quite a long time ago now, but I did lose my little boys 30 odd years ago. So he was my little boy. So I thought that perhaps some of these might go in here. In fact, that's an idea. I can photocopy those and cut them up, and they would sit quite nice, I think, behind. What does anybody want to see? I think I've seen the fish, and I thought I didn't know where it was from. I mean, that's fantastic, that one, isn't it? And again, if I photocopy them, I did photocopy, and again I photocopied the lion, the tiger. No, I tell a lie, he's a lion, isn't he, bless him? I'm pretty sure he's a lion. I photocopied the lion, and all those colours are from one tiny dot, and you saw the little book. All those greens are from the same. Oh, sorry, I'm off the camera. All those greens are off the same one. All those pinks is the same dot. So there's at least 10 colours there. It's the same dot. And the purple, I wasn't sure about the purple, I thought I'd spoilt it, but the deep purple I just started and just kept adding a drop of water and just worked my way around, thinking that underneath the mouth would be a little bit darker. Same with the blue. That's just one paintbrush drop. I mean, I did, where it's dark, I started and added water, and then, but you can get so many shades of blue from just one, and that's not mixing the colours together. Once you start mixing, the bunny wasn't metallics. Did I say metallics? The bunny was graphitint, but they do look. There, the Derwent graphitint. But I did find a tin of. Could you just take that from me, darling, please? Thank you. I'll be fine. What was I looking for? In the bottom of here, I found. Again, I was looking for things to put in the book, and I found a little tin, and as I say, it was from this £28 huge box of things I bought from eBay, and I mean there was hundreds of pounds worth of things in there. So thank you to the little man that I bought it off, because it was the most amazing thing I'd ever bought. But they are called Caran d'Ache metallic pencils, and there was just 6 in there. And what was the other metallics I found? I did find some other metallics. Oh, I will show you these, and I think these are in, what do we have? Hobby Craft we have here, don't we? If you bear with me 2 seconds. Now this was a lovely find, and they are metallic, but I haven't put them in my book. Just bear with me. I have to be careful with the chair because I have the little man just under my feet. Bless him. It seems to find I can find everything I want, but what I want. No, I put them somewhere. I'll dig them out for next week. I think I got them from Hobbycraft. They weren't expensive because, as I say, I am a bit of a cheapskate. And in Hobbycraft, it was just a pallet, and they were, as I say, they won't have been more than £5 because, as I can't justify, unless it's a birthday when I get something that's really nice, like the Hydrus, that was for my birthday. I just can't find where they are. I've had a bit of a swoop around. I found. Oh no, that's the wrong one. That definitely is the wrong one. That's pastels and things. In theory, your pastels will also go watercolour as well. In fact, let's try that. Because pastels I've never heard about the fine text. No, I've not heard about those. Let me have a look at that one. Get one that we can see. Have a look. There's a beautiful tin of pastels. I don't think I've ever used them. My daughters use them. I've never used them. That's a disgrace, really, isn't it? Well, this is a practice, this. So if I just do this. Oh, I should have done a little man, really. Let me have a look for a little man. We'll have a little man. If you have extremely good quality pastels, again, that's a watercolour pigment, but it just has a different binding. But it's all the same. It's just a different binding. And so there you have a now watercoloured pastel that where it would smudge normally, it's not going anywhere because it's been set with watercolour. So they are beautiful. I may have to try, but the thing is, I won't be able to use those because it hurts my hands. That was the reason that I haven't touched them. So I forgot what I was going to do again. I'm absolutely terrible at this. I think I didn't realise. I thought it was me. I was in a bit of a crash. Only a bump, but he was doing 60 when I was trying to turn right. Bless him. He tried to overtake me, but I did have a bit of a bump, and so can't remember things, and I kind of go off on a tangent. So you'd have to forgive me. But then I found out that I've got fibromyalgia, and that's quite normal. So I just put it down to being rather potty, scatty. So I do apologise. So that looks quite nice, actually, does that? That's given me another idea. I'm terrible for, as I say, going off and doing odd things. But, oh, this is a fab pencil. I have to tell you about this pencil. This is, if you don't put any other pencil in the little book, put this one in, because, oh, and I had a paint, I'm going to have to do it the way I was, so we were taught always, when you sharpen a pencil, is to hold this. Now, I wouldn't recommend if people start doing it, but if you're older and wiser, this is the only way to sharpen a pencil and not have it split. And there's no way you can cut yourself because your fingers are behind the pen, your thumb's on the blade, you're in complete control. This is a weird one because it's a bent one. It's a curved one because I buy different ones. And we were taught when we were 16. And if anybody gets hold of the video with David Cook, you will realise that all his pencils are done in the same way, because you end up with a lot of wood here, a lot of pigment here, and you don't waste any pigment. I even wanted to try and find the shavings. What can I do with them? Because I hated the idea of getting rid of them. So I'm getting near that blade now. And you just keep turning it, and you're doing it very carefully. You're in complete control, because this is a scalpel blade, and if you mess about with it, so that's quite a chunky one. It's no good for doing fine work. You can keep going, but for what I want to do. And then what we used to do is you get the blade then, and you just keep scraping till you get a beautiful, beautiful point. And then after using it for a couple of times, you keep your point. We always had a sharp point. But this pencil is amazing. It's a General's S, USA since 1889, sketch and wash, 588. And I found these, I think, at Cass Art, and I have to say that's what happens when you use the graphitint as a pencil, and then you put the water, because you need a lot of water so it goes through. But when you use it like this, so if I do, I'm really sorry, this is my doodle and this is what I use. And that's a pencil. But I think this pencil is my fave, and I do like other pencils as well, but I love this one, and it is so pigmented that when you touch it, it just lends itself to such a lovely pencil wash. It really is a dream and I love tints. Well, this doesn't have any, it's just pencil tints. And then if you can take your pencil to the point, your paintbrush to the point, and really, really turn it all into watercolour, you can get a really lovely thing. And I must admit, I'm obsessed with this. Oh, you spray with soaked shavings. Yeah, well, it's all pigment, isn't it? I mean, that I've just scraped into there. You see, I scraped that into there, and I've managed to catch some pigment. So if I used a bit bigger brush. Oh, that was the other thing. You've just reminded me. Thank you for reminding me. On this David Cook's, one of the other things he does to make a light wash, he put his, and it's not very clean, that. Oh no, that won't work. Not having a good day today, am I? If I put that into there, so I filled that with water. And what he does with the brush, with the Derwent brush, now he did it 30 times. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. And that's all I've done to the pencil. I've not really touched it at all. And then, if I can get a clean brush, that is a bit too pale, but let me just see if I can. He used a darker one. This is quite a pale pink. I knew I'd forget something that he'd done. I might email him and ask him if I can use a little bit of the video for him, and because it is quite an amazing thing. So what you've done is you've made a pink wash. I'll show you what happens to this when you go over it. Look, it completely is the most amazing thing. Again, the pigment on that must be fab. But this is pink. I mean, I haven't done it very dark, but you get the idea. Is if you wanted to make a pink wash and you think you can't do it from a pencil, you can. That's what you use. So yes, if I now go back into this, I'm picking up those little bits. There's a big bit there. Yeah, picky big bits. And that's made quite a nice So you can make washes with your pencils, and you can traditionally use watercolour. I say I'm just practicing with this one because I wanted to do the pinks and the purples, but normally you just get the pen and just. I have quite a few of these because I've had oddments, and there's a little pink man there. So if we colour him in and then we wet our brush, it's not very clean at the moment. You have to be that little bit wetter than normal. That's quite dark. And then if I get a little square and I clean my brush, then I wet it again. I'll watercolour next to it. I mean, if you watercoloured it, if you fill the water like that, you can get the same colour. You see, it's not far out, but you have far more control than you have. I mean, there isn't much difference between that. It is a solider red, but you know, for your versatility of the other colours, you can do that. Does that make any sense? So if you have any questions, I think I'll call it today because I think I've been waffling for long enough. So if anybody wants to see anything, if you can make a comment, I don't know how you do make comments. I'm on BunnyDesigns on YouTube. Most of what I do is on there somewhere, and it's in more detail with more waffle, unfortunately. But you can probably say if you watch a couple of them, you'll see how I actually make the book. So it'll give you an idea of what things you've got and how you can incorporate those. Because as I say, I hate the idea of telling people to go out and buy hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of stuff. The idea is that you use what you've got. Even the cheap, and I bought a pound book and a pound shop book and a pound shop set of kids' paints, and I watercoloured with them because to prove that you don't need to buy £10, £20 watercolouring books, and photocopying as well. Photocopy anything. If you can photocopy, if it's more of a line drawing and you can photocopy it, could be a T-shirt. I say I've done a tea towel. I can't find it at the moment. And because we live in a village not far away. Sorry, I stood in the dog's paw. And I just thought, well, that's just lends itself to watercolouring. So again, the graphy tints, immediately thought, wow, the graphy tint will look fab. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lynn. I hope I haven't been too boring and waffling. So what I might do next time is I might actually start and do a proper journal page and do a napkin. So I'll watercolour a napkin and I'll pop it into the book. I think the other thing I've got to do is I think you've got to watercolour first. I've learnt that, so I colour it in, and then I can, because I streamed on Sunday, and I watercoloured. I put it in and then I tried to watercolour it, and I knew in my heart that it wouldn't do it, but I wanted to try out how it worked out. So the trick is to draw your design, and as long as you waterproof pen, and the perfect pen is one of these, but this catches. You can't even use it on cheap paper. It has to be very flat paper because it's a fine wire. But next time what I might do is I'll watercolour one, and I'll already have one done, and I'll do it in stages and see if we can fill this phone book. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sorry I say I waffle a lot, but I hope you've got some good hints and inspiration from that. So I'll stop the video and then I can say bye to everybody. I think that's worked.